Welcome, my friends. When doing Reaper tasks and you get Rise of the Six, or ROTS for short, sometimes you either don't have anyone to go with, or you're just incredibly lazy to find teams. Myself included, so not judging here. Thankfully, ROTS is one of the few group tasks that's both incredibly quick and soloable, so it's really worth doing. Welcome to my guide on how to solo Rise of the Six quickly and effectively for easy Reaper points in less than 20 minutes. Let's begin. Before we start with ROTS solos, there's a few things you must know no matter your skill level or gear. First, you need to know how to kite enemies without stopping at all. Kiting is basically continuously running away from an enemy while also keeping it outside of attack range so it cannot attack. If you cannot do this consistently, your solos will be wildly inconsistent and you will instantly die with no counterplay available due to a mechanic in the fight that normally requires a second teammate. And because of that, you cannot do these kills with Revolution firing off your basics. Full manual is 100% required because it cannot kite while letting Revolution fire off abilities, so you also need to learn how to use abilities manually while moving. To do this, you simply spam click while using abilities. Make sure that your movement is after your ability usage, but if you're spam clicking, this is pretty easy to do. Both of these skills are non-negotiable. Without them, ROTS solos are either impossible, heavily RNG to get one, or just not worth the stress. Finally, there's still a fairly high chance of dying, so hardcore Ironmen should absolutely not do this at all, even with best in slot everything. And this is pretty mediocre as a way to make money compared to other solo content, giving only around 20 mil or so per hour at max, which is very low for the effort. Sometimes you get even less. Therefore, this guide should only be used if you want to finish Reaper tasks and or your normal Ironman without a team. Now that we have all that out of the way, let's get into the gear setup and the fight. ROTS solos actually don't have super high requirements, mostly. For the sake of demonstration, the lowest tiered gear I'll be using is Unaugmented Armadillo, Camping Mechanized Chinchambas, and Offhand Chaotic Crossbow. However, most people watching this will not have a good time attempting this with that low gear, so instead I would recommend at least tier 80 or higher armor and bring a tier 90 or higher weapon for certain parts of the fight. And with your typical augments, of course. One thing that is almost absolutely required for a nicer time is an SS finality with Dark Bow. That completely destroys all of the brothers very quickly with insane accuracy and damage, so this is by far the next best thing to use after Chinchambas. Reckless Aura is also required, as without it, you will splash way more and have an even rougher time. Quality of life equipment like Nightmare Gauntlets and Fleeting Boots become much better here as you can now use Snipe and Rapid Fire while running around, increasing your DPS by a lot. If you don't have an SS finality for some reason, then I recommend you skip these Reaper tasks unless you're up for it. I'll include some bits of what to do without one, but you are making it much harder for yourself without one. For food, accuracy and adrenaline are king, so Sailfish and Ceradomin Brews are subpar as they will drain adrenaline and stats respectively, lowering your DPS by quite a bit. Use Blue Blubber Jellyfish and Gothic's Rest as your primary way of healing. Even though they heal less than Sailfish and Ceradomin Brews, they will not drain stats or adrenaline, so you can basically spam heal without any downside, aside from, running out of supplies. The rest is the usual suspects like Overload, Prayer Restore, Bloody Dive Switch, Barrow's Totems, etc. However, this is where the Adrenaline Urn or Persistent Rage Relic is actually really nice for both quality of life and to conserve adrenaline after each kill. Since you forcibly lose around 20% adrenaline after every kill because you are forcibly removed from combat stance, the Urn or Persistent Rage is really good so you don't continuously bleed adrenaline every kill. And plus, quality of life is never unwelcome. A nice thing to bring are expensive spices from the Let 'em Eat Pie quest, which increases how much food heals by a flat 50 life points. Doesn't sound super good until you realize it also applies to multi-bite foods like jellyfish, so each jellyfish heals for an additional 150 life points per. While you need to bring a ton of food to make it quote-unquote worth the inventory space, you won't need all your food in your inventory. Hopefully. As a final note, both the Undead Slayer perk and ability works here, although Salve Amma does not. Using the perk will increase your damage by 7%, and using the ability will increase your damage by another 15% for 10 seconds for free. They are not required, but they definitely make the fights quite a bit easier too. Once you get your preset ready, there's one more thing to check, and that's what brothers are on what side in the fight. Every day, there's a different formation with a brother on a different side, so it mixes itself up quite nicely. But in general, you don't need to worry too much about these rotations since eventually you're going to fight all 6 brothers at once. There's only one problematic formation you should be wary of, and that's when Karo and Torag are on the same side. Jumping ahead here, the strategy mostly involves going on Karo's side because he's the most annoying brother in terms of just stopping your DPS when hitting him. He can randomly decide to become invulnerable or drag out the fight longer than needed, so getting him down first is the best way forward. Unfortunately, if you add Torag to the mix, it becomes a bit more annoying. Torag's gimmick is the mechanic mentioned earlier where it can randomly send you to the ground and render you completely immobile. The only way to break free is having a teammate do damage against Torag, and since we're solo, that's not possible at all. So the only way out is just dying or somehow surviving for 2 minutes. This is exactly why you need to be running the entire time when he's around until he dies. You will always have to deal with Torag eventually no matter what, since all of the brothers will go on the same side after a certain point, but having to deal with Torag from the get-go increases your chances of dying by quite a bit. So if you get Torag and Karo on the same side when you get a Reaper task, you can choose to go on the opposite side instead. If you do this though, you absolutely want an instant finality to burst Karo down quick enough before he does any problematic special attacks after he hops over to you. Then you can quickly kill off the other brothers. No matter what though, it will be a bigger pain to do, and it's fine to just skip the Reaper and put it off to the next day, assuming it's still not Karo and Torag at the same side again. In the description of this video, I will include a calendar link that tells you all the upcoming ROTS rotations so you know if the next day will have Karo or Torag on the same side. But now let's get into the actual fight. The overall strategy isn't terribly complex with no real set rotation, but getting key abilities like Threshold and Darkbow specs off is most important. This is the overall flowchart of ROTS solos. Lower Karo's life points to below 7k or so, wait for brothers to hop sides and lower the other brothers while waiting, kill Karo immediately, rush down the other melee brothers with Thresholds and Darkbow specs using Chinchampas, then get on Aram to finish him off. All while doing this, you're constantly running around while using abilities to prevent the melee brothers from attacking you at all. If you're starting on a non-Karo and Torag side, the same deal applies, but the process of killing Karo will take a bit longer after brothers hop. To get into more detail, let's start with the beginning. Rush down Karo by starting with a Darkbow spec and some Thresholds and basics. This should be good enough to quickly lower him so you can start to lower the other brothers in some way or form. If you don't have a Darkbow EOF, just use Thresholds, although it will be quite a bit slower. Wait for a while until the other brothers hop to the other side and do not kill any brothers before then. Brothers cannot hop sides if there's a dead brother, and killing one too early will drag out the fight. Once brothers hop sides, immediately kill Karo and start attacking the melee brothers. Darkbow is overkill to finish Karo off, but if you want to guarantee he dies in one hit, go for it. After he dies, you can use your Adrenaline Potion here and spam Darkbow specs alongside Thresholds. Since you most likely lower the other melee brothers, you'll be able to quickly kill another brother or two from your original side really quickly, so you have some leeway to kill the other melee brothers. If you don't have a Darkbow EOF, use Deadshot with Chins and your Adrenaline Potion after that to use Thresholds and kill them all instantly. Once Aram is left, you can stop running and just focus on him. For an extremely easy but also much slower way, you can just onslaught and finish him off there, and I recommend this if you're using lower tiered gear. But with best in slot or near gear and Darkbow, you can finish him off quicker with Thresholds and Darkbow over onslaught. Once he's done, that marks the end of the fight and you can go loot. Pretty simple, right? That's basically all there is to ROTS solos. It's really not too bad once you actually start doing it. As a recap, lower Karo, wait for brothers to hop, kill Karo, chin melee brothers, kill them all, and then get on Aram. Do all this while moving all the time and you're golden. But there are ways to make the fight easier or faster, so I'll go over them now. Right before you get into the fight, I highly recommend taking a dip into the saltwater spring in either Ugalag or Anachronia. Running out of run energy after multiple kills on the trip can actually happen, and if you run out of energy when Torag is out, you're in big trouble. So being able to run forever really helps out a lot. Once Karo is dead, you can do something called Chin Send. Basically, this allows you to use Incendiary Shot with Chinchampas. If you apply it to a group of chins, all of your targets will be hit by Incendiary Shot, which will all explode for massive damage. So in this situation here, I have applied 4 separate Incendiary Shots, one on each brother, and they all explode for AoE damage, meaning these melee brothers all took 4 separate Incendiary Shot hits, which would absolutely demolish the brothers if used correctly. The execution is a bit tricky though. You need to blade dive and surge away from the melee brothers very quickly after using an ability, cast Incendiary Shot, then quickly switch to Chinchampas, then run back to the brothers to release it. You also want to switch back to your chins using the action bar, be it clicking on it or using the keybind. If you click from the inventory, you stop running towards your target and you have to manually click on your target again, which in the heat of the moment can be really bad and end up killing you from Torag Stomp or something. Using a blowpipe is actually best for this, as the blowpipe has incredibly short range, which is normally a detriment but is actually really nice for stalling Incendiary Shot, so it's fine. Aram can be made a bit less annoying by making him go into the air after doing 5k damage to him. This prevents him from using any special attacks for 2 minutes, and since you're using range, you won't suffer any damage penalties for using melee or magic. This can be a nice way to spend time while waiting for brothers to hop if Aram and Carol are on the same side. And finally, during the tunnels, you can bring a power burst of acceleration to zoom through the tunnels much more quickly to speed up your runs. I don't do it in these examples because the purpose of this guide is to show the actual fight and not necessarily the tunnels, but you can save a lot of time using them. That covers how to do rot solos for Reapers. Again, do not do this for money as there are far better and easier ways to make money solo. Only do solos if you need to do a Reaper task and can't be bothered finding friends, or if you're an extremely antisocial Iron Man that needs some malevolent energies. But that's it for this video. If you enjoyed this, it'll be incredibly appreciated if you share it with other people and hit the like or even subscribe button if it helps you out. Until next time everybody, bye.